Hey everyone, welcome back to PokeMarketLab. Today we are asking ourselves, should we go back to any boxes from Sword and Shield and pick any up? Are there any opportunities? This is kind of a state of the market for boxes in Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield as an era is getting fairly old. It started with base set all the way back in February of 2020, so it's getting up there in age. And I thought it'd be interesting to go see where box prices are, see where market depth is, and even look a little bit at total single values for some of these sets, and see if there are any opportunities for pickup. Everyone's talking about Scarlet and Violet right now, and I think that's rightfully so. I think from a set standpoint, Scarlet and Violet is certainly coming into its own, kind of like Sword and Shield did on the back half. So let's get into it. So I pulled this chart together of all booster boxes for Sword and Shield. We're just looking at regular releases. We're not looking at specialty sets like Crown Zenith. And this chart shows market price, current quantity, average daily sold, and total sold. So I'm hoping we can kind of look at this consolidated info from a high level and see if there's any opportunities. So the first one I wanted to talk about was Silver Tempest. What I consider a pretty decent set. This was the last full set here in Sword and Shield. Market price holding in at 165, current quantity is 116. These are still available on Pokemon Center. So that's kind of what's keeping this price in line. I think it's a decent set. I would consider it a mid-tier set for Sword and Shield. In the market over the last year or so, a couple sold per day, about 800 sold total the last year. So what I think is happening here with Silver Tempest, number one, we got a big last reprint here for Silver Tempest before we got into the Scarlet and Violet age. So I think what happened with Silver Tempest was all that kind of COVID mentality for printing boxes from the Pokemon Company was carried through the end of Sword and Shield, and I think into Scarlet and Violet for a bit as well. So Silver Tempest was really, I think, quite heavily printed here, and we still have product in Pokemon Center. Depth of market's okay on TCG Player, and just a reminder on TCG Player, when we talk depth of market, it's only what we're seeing on TCG Player. Obviously, people have personal collections, local game stores, big box stores. There's lots of other product out there, but the only place we can really look at consolidated data for market depth is TCG Player. So when I say TCG Player market depth, it's not the entirety of the market, of course. So I think Silver Tempest is still a decent pickup at $165 a box, but one of the takeaways from this video is, okay, if I'm spending $165, is it worth spending on a product that's not that old? Silver Tempest is not quite that old. It's certainly the last set in Sword and Shield. Do I put my money there, or do I put my money into something else in maybe Scarlet and Violet that's cheaper? And maybe has some more upside potential. So those are things you should be asking yourself before you pick up boxes. Next box is Astral Radiance, really starting to dry up here on TCG Player. I think, again, another mid-tier set, so there's some opportunity here, but the market's really not biting. Average of 1 sold per day, only 500 sold in the last year. Shilling Rain certainly doing really well, really starting to dry up. Average daily sold and total boxes sold, you can see much more volume here over the last year. The only thing that's resisting the market resistance in terms of purchasing more and driving this price higher is just the price is getting up there. But again, it's a fantastic set. It's a set that's quite old now at this point. Vivid Voltage, we're starting to get into some of the earlier Sword and Shield sets that are kind of iffy in terms of the cards in them and the market sentiment on the set, but these are certainly starting to dry up. So if you're looking for something that has age and has very shallow depth of market and a decent price, this is certainly one of them. Darkness Ablaze as well, not a beloved set. Very little movement here on TCG Player, and the price is pretty stagnant, but it is starting to dry up. And one thing I wanted to talk about, we're starting to get into kind of a weird territory that's more of a emotional and psychological territory. When boxes start to get old, the box itself becomes the collectible, regardless of what's in it. Not completely regardless, but it starts to become less of a factor. Take Evolving Skies, right? Evolving Sky, look how many boxes are available on TCG Player. 127 boxes for Evolving Skies at 877, and only 500 sold in the last year, obviously because of that price. That price is heavily informed by the product that you could potentially crack opening that box. Well, I can guarantee you most people buying Vivid Voltage, Darkness Ablaze, maybe even Battle Styles, they're not all buying them just because of what's in there. They're buying them because the box itself becomes a collectible, and that's called divergence. We see that Final Trade talks about it. It's the alligator mouth starts to open up where the box value and the singles value starts to diverge. They don't necessarily trend upwards together. You don't need a singles prices to trend upwards for the box price to get up as the box becomes old, and that's what's happening with Vivid Voltage here and Darkness Ablaze and Rebel Clash and even Sword and Shield base here, which is another one I wanted to talk about. Only 25 boxes. This is definitely, we're starting to see more of these sold recently, which is starting to drive that price up again. It's a 4-year-old box now, so if you're taking money, you're looking for an investment or collectible, and age is a factor that certainly want to pick up. So, but again, that price is starting to run up there. So this other screen here I wanted to show you is that chart we were just looking at, as well as the ranking by total value of cards in set. And again, you can see some of those those earlier sets in Sword and Shield here, very low value of cards in set. But take a Sword and Shield base, only $316 of value. But that booster box right now is worth more than Chilling Reign, which has a ton more single values. And again, that just proves, I think, that point, that psychological point, that human emotion point, where the box itself becomes that collectible item. People aren't just buying it to crack for singles at that point. Okay, so let's do a little recap here. What's the takeaway? Well, a couple of things. I think age is on our side here for a lot of these sets. My concern is that we are so heavily focused on Scarlet and Violet now that some of these sets are going to stagnate for a period of time. And it's not that just Scarlet and Violet is good, it's getting really good. It's getting, I think the fever here in Scarlet and Violet from multiple sets is going to be probably higher than anything we've seen in Sword and Shield naturally. I'm talking organic. There's a lot of demand during COVID for certain Pokemon sets that really turned out to be not so good. It wasn't organic demand, it was exogenous investment money coming in looking for whatever it could get. I don't think we're not seeing that at all in Scarlet and Violet. There's certainly the hype cycle starting to pull more people in, but at the end of the day, the product's good. And I can say that, obviously this is subjective in terms of artwork and everything, but from what I'm seeing with Twilight Masquerade, what I'm seeing with Surging Sparks, what we're seeing with Prismatic Evolutions, potentially with the Team Rocket set, there's a lot there to love. So I think from a dollars standpoint, dollars into sets, I think Scarlet and Violet is going to reign king for a while. So that's just gonna keep the focus firmly planted and the money funnel firmly planted in Scarlet and Violet. What I think could change that calculus is if that Scarlet and Violet price keeps rising. So again, Surging Sparks right at $200 now. If it hits $250 or $300. I think that's going to create quite a bit of resistance there from a purchasing standpoint. And I think some folks are going to ask the question, well, for $300, should I just come over here and buy a Chilling Reign box at $230 when there's only 75 of them left on the market there? So what's the chance of upside potential? What is the upside potential? And what are the chances that upside potential now versus the future with that calculus of that kind of choice? So I think a lot of people are going to be making that assumption, that decision about where to put their money. And I know for me, I'm certainly starting to think about again, if I can't get Prismatic Evolutions and I got some money I want to invest in, I think there's some potential upside here on Lost Origin boxes. I think Astral Radiance at under $200 on a decent set with under 100 boxes available on TCG Player could be a good option. So really the TLDR is just a little bit of stagnation here in some of the more costly sets from that era. And it doesn't mean these aren't going to run up. They're 100% going to get to another accumulation phase. And I think that's more likely as the cost of some of these better sets for Scarlet and Violet do start to go up. It's just a matter of time. And again, this always goes back to your time horizon. How long can you wait? Me, again, I just like to buy them and put them away and then, stare at my collection sometimes, but to each their own. So, again, fantastic era. No one can discount the fact, no one can understate the fact that Sword and Shield was an awesome era. And I think there was a lot of assumption going to Scarlet and Violet that Sword and Shield was it. It was not going to get better than that. And I think the first few sets in Scarlet and Violet were kind of rightfully led you to that conclusion. But I think it's very clear now, even with the path that we're on, not just the recent sets we've seen, that Scarlet and Violet's going to give Sword and Shield a run for its money. And I guess that that makes sense. That tracks, right? The Pokemon Company knows what it's doing. Rudy talks about this all the time. They are the collectible company. That is their market, and they know what to do in terms of artwork. They know what to do in terms of print box numbers, print run numbers. They know what they're doing, and so the trend is just really just upward, and really just comes down to, at the end of the day, how many buyers, how many collectors, how many investors, everyone who buys their product are out there. And I don't think they really haven't hit that limit yet. So that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, like, comment, subscribe if you like what we're doing, or don't. Either way. And we will see you on the next one.